All right, this is an interview at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York, the 12th of January 2006, approximately 11 a.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
John S. Barber, born 11/2/32 in Salem.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Okay. I went to Salem High School and graduated from there.
Okay, you went right from high school. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I enlisted in the Air Force.
Okay, why did you select the Air Force?
Well, at the time, I had just received my notification from the draft board, so I thought, well, I think I'd rather be in the Air Force and try to learn something and what have you, and rather than go in the Army. So.
Had you ever flown at that time?
No,
or
no.
Just, okay.
Yeah.
What year did you enlist?
1952, April 21st.
Okay. Where did you go for basic?
Samson.
All right, the gentleman we interviewed this morning was at Samson.
Yeah.
What was Samson like when you went there?
Cold.
It was an old Navy base.
Yeah, we stayed in the barracks right down next to the lake, Seneca Lake, and it was in April, as I've said, and it was cold out there, really cold.
How about the conditions in the barracks and so on?
They really weren't too bad, you know, or at least I didn't think they were. They kept us busy all the time. Like
Now, did you get uniforms right away?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, the other gentleman we interviewed went in, I think, in, what do you say, 51?
Mm-hmm.
51, and they did their drills and everything in civilian.
Yeah.
They
No,
didn't have uniforms.
Yeah, and a friend of mine, he went to Lackland, and I think he said they were 3 months before they were issued anything. Or
So you were issued everything right away?
We were issued almost immediately, so, yeah. It's, in a way, I was a little surprised at that, but.
How long were you at Samson? Approximately.
I'm going to say 48 days, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Where did you go from there?
And then we went to Shepherd Field, and we left, that's a story. We left Syracuse from the airport up there, and oh, it was freezing cold that morning, snowing and sleeting and what have you. And we got down to Shepherd Field, Wichita Falls, Texas. And they opened up the door. It was an old C-46, I'll never forget that. And they opened up that door. Of course, we had our booze on and all that. And I'll tell you, I thought we'd been sent to hell. The heat was just almost take your breath away. And such a dramatic change. And I'll never forget getting on the plane. And of course, there were a lot of guys on the tarmac and whatever, and they looked at us like, you know, what's wrong with that? You know, but that was all part of it anyhow, so that was all part of it.
Did you receive specialized training there?
Yeah, I went to school there for, I'm going to say probably 3 months, engine school.
Now, did you specialize on any special engine?
Reciprocating engines. Okay. Because jets were still really new back in at that time, of course. So I think they did have a jet school there, but mainly we were reciprocating.
Okay. All right. Do you have any little story you want to tell us about your time at Shepherd at all, or?
Jeez, not that I can think of. I know one thing. I was glad to get out of there, but the only thing that really sticks in my mind was my wife came down and we lived off base, and
so you were married?
I was married at the time, yeah. Okay. And then we'd have school from 4 in the afternoon until, I don't know, 10, 11, whatever it was. But you'd have to go out, you'd have to have your khakis on, of course, long sleeves, with your hat and what have you. And of course, they'd line you up on the blacktop, and then we'd have to march off to school. And I'm telling you, I can't believe that I lived through that period of my life from the heat. You know, it It was just unbelievable. But I got through it anyhow. So.
Okay, where did you go from there?
Let's see. Then I went to Chinook Field up in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. And then I went to Specialized Engine School up there, 4360s mainly. And I was up there for, I'm going to say, 2 to 3 months roughly. And then that's where I got sent overseas from that point.
Where were you sent?
We originally, that's another story, they sent us to England. And there were 13 of us that had the same specialty at that time. And they sent us to Burtonwood, up outside of Liverpool, England.
Did you fly over there or take a
No,
ship?
we went by boat.
Okay.
In the Air Force, we traveled by boat. But anyhow, we went to a processing center when we got to England, and they kept us there 3 or 4 days, and then they took the 13 of us, they put us on a bus, and they sent us over to Burtonwood. We go through the gate, it's an RAF, still, Royal Air Force Air Base. And maybe there were American personnel there, I don't know if they was, we never did see them, but I can recall very vividly, we went into the base operations, and they sent us to a squadron area. And I remember walking in, and this British major, I think he was, and I said to him right away, I said, "Sir," I said, "we're in the wrong place." He says, he looked at the orders, he said, "Not according to your orders." I said, "Yeah, I realize that," but I said, "You know, we're the United States American Air Force." So I said, "What are we going to be doing?" And he said, "We have all these shops." I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Yeah." He said, "We're going to take the 13 of you and send you down to small instrument shop, carburetors and what have you, hydraulics and I said, "But that's not our specialist. I told you we're in the wrong spot." "Well, you're here." Well, I never really cared for England after that. Of course, we stayed in the Quonset hut. Of course, this was the spring of the year, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, you had the pot-bellied stove and the soft coal. And dampness, constant. Never could get used to that. You had to have somebody keep the stove going all night or you'd freeze to death, you know. So we were there about 3 months.
So you were on only a small American unit and an RAF base?
RAF base, yeah. And so we were there about 3 months, and then one day somebody comes in the shop and they came around to each of us and they said, "Report to the CO." So we went back over there and we walked in, and he comes out and he looks at me and he says, "Barber, you were right." I said, "What's that?" He says, "You're in the wrong place." I said, "I told you, sir." He says, "You're getting out of here." I said, "Where are we going?" He said, "I don't know right now, but you're moving. We just got notification." So from there, they sent us to Rhine, Maine, outside of Frankfurt, Germany. And we had orders to report to the 317th Troop Carrier Wing at Rhine, Maine. So we went into base ops and showed the guy the order and so on, and he says, he looked, the other guy standing there, he said, "You ever hear of this?" The guy said, "No." And I said, "You know, what are you talking about?" And he said, "We never heard the 317th. And I said, "Well, it says that in Rhine, Maine. We're here." He said, "Well, we don't know really where they are right now." So he said, "Well, you guys will go over to transit and stay over." So they put us on a bus. Geez, we went over there, and I'll tell you, those barracks, they were like a condo. It was unbelievable. They were beautiful. So we thought, well, this is a nice way to live anyhow. So we were over there, and I think we were there, I'm going to say about 10 days. Finally, somebody comes along with a truck. He says, "You guys going over to ops?" So we went over. All this time, of course, nobody unpacked their duffel bag. Nobody did laundry and what have you, you know. So we went over there finally with the ops. So the guy said, 317th is down at Newbyburg. And I said to him, "Well, where's that?" And he said, "Just outside of Munich." And I said, "Well, how are we going to get there?" I said, "Nobody's got any money or anything." He said, "Well, come report back tomorrow. Come back here tomorrow." So we went back the next morning. He said, "They're going to send a plane up for you." I said, "Okay, good." I said, "Well, what do we do in the meantime?" He says, "Go back to transit." So we go back over to transit where we were, check in again. Geez, it was almost another week. Finally, we got notification report. So we got down to, they finally picked us up, C-47. That was some ride. Went through thunderstorms and what have you. But we got down to Newbyburg. So we were at the wing headquarters. They took us there. And of course now, this is going on 3 to 4 weeks since we left England. So this officer, whoever it was, said to us, he said, "Where have you been?" So we went through the whole spiel with him. And finally we got assigned to, I got assigned to 317th Maintenance Squadron. And that's where the 317th Troop Carrier Wing was. And then I spent about the next 20 months there. I think it was 18 to 20, something like that.
Now, what was your assignment? What?
I started there. I started in engine buildup, and then I was in working in there, and then I was a flight line mechanic to boot. So they had 119s troop carriers there, and we did a lot of things with NATO, of course, at that time. So, you know, airdrops and what have you. So that was a good experience. So.
In what way?
Just Germany was real nice, and where we were was down in Bavaria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, down, and we used to go down to the Alps, Garmisch and Partenkirchen, and where was Hitler's
Berchtesgaden?
You know, visited there a couple times, and a beautiful country, really nice country, and German people were very, I thought, treated the America very well back at that time. Munich, a lot of the city was still blown apart when I was there. You know, from World War II. There were parts of it they'd fixed up, but there were other parts that was just total, complete rubble. It's what you see on the news in Iraq today, you know, certain parts of it. And that was a little difficult to adjust to, you know, never having seen anything like that before. So. But overall, I really enjoyed the experience of being over there.
Now, your wife wasn't able to come over?
No, she didn't come over there. No, she didn't come there. As I say, I don't know, a year and a half, 18 to 20 months anyhow, by the time I got back. So, and I was anxious to get home because just before I went over, she got pregnant. So we had a boy. I think he's about 9 months old before I saw him. So naturally, I was anxious for that. So. But like I say, I really enjoyed the experience of it. So.
Okay, when did you return to the States?
I'm going to say, I think it was like November of '54, November or December, probably November, I think.
And what was your assignment after that?
Then I was sent to, service. They give you 3 choices at the Air Base Newbyburg before I came back. 3 bases we'll try to get you assigned to. And I put in for Griffiths, which was out in Rome at the time, West Palm Beach in Florida, and I've forgotten where the other one was, I think over in Massachusetts someplace. Westover. And of course I got sent to Waco, Texas, James Connolly Air Force Base. I said to my wife when when I found out, I remember writing on her and saying, I guess there isn't any air bases in the States except in Texas because we can't see that anything but end up there. But we enjoyed Texas different the both times we were there. So
No, your assignment very similar,
yeah,
engine maintenance and...
yeah, I worked on B-25s mainly there, and of course they were left over from World War II.
Mhm.
And
Was it mostly component changes you were doing, or were you pulling the whole engines? And
no,
replacing them?
I was doing everything.
Mhm.
Okay. Maintenance, changing engines, okay, changing props, changing cylinders, whatever needed done, carburation or what have you, you know.
Mhm.
So it was a whole gamut, a whole gamut. And then just before I left there, about the last probably 4 or 5 months, I was crewing a B-25, and I had 5 civilians working for me, and that was interesting because a lot of guys were at the time being discharged, and then they were coming back in a civilian capacity doing exactly the same thing they were doing in the military. So and a lot of them were retirees, so they were getting a pension from the government besides getting a salary from the government again. So I guess it worked out very well for them. And those guys I had were really good because they'd all had all kinds of experience. So you told them, here, this is what needed to be done, and they do it, you know. So it was a good job. I don't know why I got out.
Did you find those aircraft to be very labor intensive, or?
Not really, not overly. More so than in Germany now, I worked the 119s, and those were the 4360s, and those things were just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. As far as maintenance was minimal on those, and they were up they still are, I guess, probably very, very safe type of engine, you know. They just, hardly anything ever went wrong with those. Major. Okay, major. And we were just down to D.C. here a couple months ago, 3 months ago, on a trip. And we went out to that new
the
space
Smithsonian
aero museum out at
Yes.
Dulles. And we're walking around, of course, looking. I was right up my alley. And when I got over in a corner, I saw a cutout of a 4360 engine that looked exactly, just exactly like the one we had out at Chanute Field in Illinois. And they had how they cut it out, and you could see the inside of it and the working parts. And it was just, Jesus, I said, oh my God, you know, I'm going back in time here, you know. But I almost think they sent it from there, I don't know. But that was, well, I'll tell you, I would highly recommend that to anybody to see that. I was much more impressed with that than I was the Air and Space Museum at the Smithsonian. That's nice. That's nice, but I like the one at Dulles better.
When were you discharged?
April of '56, April 20th. I spent 4 years right to the day.
And that was from, you were at Waco when you were...
Yeah, I was discharged from there, yeah, from Conley. That was the Air Training Command that I was with there.
After you were discharged, did you make use of the GI Bill at all?
Yeah, in fact, I started school, okay, at Albany State in '56 that fall. And I went the first semester. My wife had a job, we had the kid. She had a full-time job. I was working a part-time job and trying to go to college. Of course, back then, they didn't have the loan programs that were available now, you know, accessible. And all of a sudden, I decided, geez, I don't think really this is my niche right now. So I dropped out after a semester there at Albany State. I did quite a few jobs over a period of time. And then once they reinstated the GI Bill, they dropped it there for a few years. I can't remember how long, what the period of time was. But when it was reinstated, I thought, geez, I think I'll go back and get my teaching degree. And my wife, she had a good job at the time. She was the secretary of the superintendent there in Salem. So I went back to school and got my degree. And I'm very happy I did it, to say the least, so very happy.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I belong to Legion.
Okay.
I belong to Legion. I've been going to join the Korean there in Glens Falls, and I just haven't got around to it, but I intend to do it eventually.
Okay.
So.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone you were in service with?
One guy down in New Jersey, we've gotten together different times over the years, and he and his wife and my wife, they correspond a couple times a year to each other. So. Yeah.
How do you think your time in the service had an effect or changed your life at all in any way?
Oh, no doubt about it. I think it's when you go through it. Like I go back to basic training. I couldn't wait to get out of there, and I think probably most guys that have been gone through that felt the same. But when I look back on it, I think that was one of the best times I had while I was in service. I learned more about discipline and just life. You know, a lot of intangibles I think you get out of service that, you really can't put your finger on. But they promote your life throughout your whole span. So I don't begrudge going in service a bit. In fact, I would highly recommend. I think every guy should have to do it, but that's my only opinion.
Okay, thank you.